hour. We're going to have 4 reports from 4 different subgroups. So let's divide by 4. So let's say this, each group will give 10 to 12 minutes of presentations to summarize what the group conclusions are. And then after that, we have a few minutes for Q&A. So with that, let's start with group number 1. Coming up.
See the pic? So see the picture here, because we'll. I think everyone should get a copy of that, and I wanted to show you that the discussion we had this morning toward a shared vision, we made modifications, 4 or 5 modifications to here to reflect those changes. So, so now we'll start with number 1.
Well, in the morning, group 1 and 3 met together, so I'll let group 3 discuss it because it's more in their wheelhouse as to what was going on. But after the morning session, group 1 went upstairs, and we have been diligently placing data into templates for us to be able to translate by the end of the week. Also, we've been working between AGMIP and the REACH program to see where our APIs can cross over, collaborate, and maybe start sharing metadata at that level. So I actually have a very short report back because we're all data driven. And we didn't have much discussion, but a lot of work done. Go ahead. Most of the difficulties in putting the data into the templates is variable mapping. Basically, one crop model says this is what we output. How does that necessarily relate? Does it relate? Is there another mechanism that we have to use as a third-party process to make it work? And then we just resolve those issues, or have a crop modeler come in and speak about that and say, hey, you know, they have one-to-one discussions. And that's typically how our translation process works, both with building translators and with bringing in data. When we bring in data or do translators, we typically have a modeler and a developer working together to make these things work. And that's kind of where group 2 is at. So that's a good segue, unless there's any other questions. I like no questions. It's beautiful. So group 2.
The final second, here we go. Top one, yep, I'm sorry, yeah. Too close to see. So I won't be quite as brief as Chris, but try to be pretty close. We said our goal today was to talk about nitrogen and phosphorus in the translators. So basically we sort of covered just in general what kind of variables. So there's soil variables, which are not only, we use them as initial conditions, the models will predict them, and also there might be measurements made during the course of the season for comparison. So is, you know, they just have, you know, inorganic, NP, organic material, and then other variables are the management variables, which are going to be used for inputting to the models, fertilizer, you know, inorganic, all the different forms of nitrogen and phosphorus. And then we talked quite a bit about the organic matter, because obviously manure is important, different kinds of residue you might add, that's all important. And then the plant variables, well, they're not input to the models. None of our models put plant material in as an input. They're definitely an output to the models, and they're also, again, used as a comparison to, you know, measurements in the field. So, you know, is there plant concentration, in season at maturity, and obviously any sort of organ you can imagine, leaf stem. Obviously we don't have root there, but roots as well. And we basically spent most of the day on working on the translators. Cheryl went and triple checked that DSAT is working perfectly. It was. Crop Assist and AppSim, they have end data and they're working fine. WOFOS is they were working on nitrogen and phosphorus, and Salos is also working on it, adding those to the translators. And that's what we're at the moment. Any questions? Oh, it's my understanding, yes.
Concentration are in concentrations, and crop cysts we use masses, so I need to convert for the bulk density in the soil. I just haven't tested that, but I've got that all implemented.
There's a question back here.
So what are the units of soil organic matter? Do you express as organic carbon or how? Mm-hmm. But I would have thought the unit would be carbon.
So let me comment on that. So there's two ways to look at this. One is what's in the ICASA data dictionary, because that's our standard. But then each of the models then will take that value and convert them to whatever units the models need. And also generate the different pools, which vary from model to model. So the ICASA units are grams carbon per 100 grams of soil for organic carbon.
Right, and then also, I think the reason we had the word organic matter here is that the nitrogen and phosphorus, well, organic matter is obviously carbon. The nitrogen and phosphorus associated with that carbon, and we have to. That's in most cases the models kind of figure out where that have to kind of figure out where that gets divided, where that gets separated into the right pools.
I see that inorganic P is a label, P and active and stable. Is this where is coming information as a data to the model? Is it just like an output to the model? I'm a little bit confused in that. What is it?
I'm not so clear on the P. Maybe sure has a better idea. I think mostly again
Okay. Well, if you're talking about, for example, soil P, that's one of those issues that comes from different methodology that producer uses to get as an input to this, and depending which one you do, how the model reads them as a soil P is totally different. For example,
right. So I think there's difference from model to model. I know in Salus, I think we read in a single value for P, and then the model based on the soil type. I think it decides what pools those go into. I don't think there's a really good. I don't know that code very well, so I couldn't answer that. Sorry, time. Okay. Any questions?
And then out of this event, we still have a terminology and concept issue that we need to work work through it. You're the one to put this up here. I'm sorry. So at the bottom, and Carol, go ahead and pull up the spreadsheet if you want to. So like at the bottom level, we might have just like a controlled vocabulary. So we just agree on some terms and there's no relations or anything. Moving up, you might have a thesaurus, and there's some discussions about whether that would have relations or structure. And some of us think of a thesaurus just being terms that mean the same thing, still with no structure. And we had some discussion about taxonomies that do have some relation. Data dictionary, which I guess is what we've been calling our master variable list. But to a relational database person, I think a data dictionary is what you get. You push the button and it tells you what variables you've got and what table. And then, of course, there's the O word. And we're still having a lot of discussion on this about, you see, I guess I come from, I'm an expert. I've been to 2 workshops on ontologies. So there's the notion of ontology as a branch of philosophy just describing relations. And that doesn't have anything to do with units of measurement or anything. And then there's, I guess, some people are trying to go, no, we need to be more pragmatic and have methods and units of measurements. And I think these are still issues that need to be sorted out because it creates a lot of confusion when somebody says, oh, cropontology.org has got ontologies for all these crops, and you look at it, and it looks to me like a data dictionary, or what I'd call a data dictionary. But other people say, no, it's not. So we need to work on this some more, and I don't know, I invite comments from people. Yes.
Yes, there's distinction among those things. In terms of levels, data dictionary is different from the rest of that. Data dictionary, just like you talk about, is a list of variables you keep track. Right? Has nothing to do with ontology per se. Really, if you look at these things, the real 3 things that they all interconnect together is the taxonomy or classification. There's a hierarchical model. That means that you have a parent-child relationship. And then once you get into the thoros is a little bit more, not just only the parent and child relationship, hierarchical relationship, but also has a network relationship. This happened to be a highest level of representation, has all the reasoning. From the mathematical term is a so-called abstract, is a topology. So I would say in the industry right now, especially in the medical industry, we at that time we pushed for this one, but it wasn't successful. Medical industry set up for this one here. So essentially, I think for us, the taxonomy or classification is the lowest denominator we like to go for it, and maybe go for the thoros. The thoros, you have more computability. And if you go up here, it's more reasoning, more semantic tracking things. So I would not be intending to go for this level per se, but we don't want to go to just a list of variables without relationship. That is going to hamper the computation in the future. So at least we need to go for this level.
I don't disagree, but I would say you should aim for the ontology in the end, because otherwise you will not get true semantic reasoning.
Good. Thank you. I think this discussion demonstrates we're making progress. I'm going to go back and get to Wikipedia and look these up. But we'll move on. So a good part of the afternoon, we put Carol on the literally, I think, on the hot seat. In fact, we presented two challenges. One was a scientific challenge of sort of working through the spreadsheet for the dairy cap, and also she's a Mac user, and we gave her a Windows laptop to work with, and she did a wonderful job.
To my colleagues for suffering through the horribleness of watching me try to work the Windows machine in front of everybody. And I think that our group was looking at the dairy cap as a case for assimilating a new kind of experiment and new kinds of variables. But for me, it was very, very valuable to have my colleagues helping. So thank you very, very much, everybody. So a lot of it went very smoothly, and nobody had anything to say about the units or the variables that were chosen. But the interesting parts, I think, were where we sort of said, where should that go, or what should we call that? So I'm just going to try to go through very quickly and highlight the places where we had a hiccup and we had to talk about things. Part of the questions really in the end relate to how the database that is going to receive this data is going to be set up. A cow identifier, for example. Can the cow identifier do once for all the things that we have to say about cows, or does a cow identifier have to appear in every little table that talks about different aspects of the cow? So we didn't totally iron that out, but realized that database structure will inform the structure of the variables. Lots of things are time series. Not everything is a time series. Obviously, the breed and stuff like that, but we were wondering whether rations would be a time series. Maybe they'll be fixed, maybe they'll be changing. So lots of things like that will depend on the particular experiment, have to go back and ask the investigators, and yet might want to make the template that I come up with as general as possible and allow for future experiments where rations might be changing over the course of the experiment. So how specific to make this to the experiments that I'm thinking about, and how general to make it for future users is a question. Another example of that is the cows in our experiments are all going to be in the barn during their feeding trials, but in future ones, cows might be outside. So we need to have a whole other set of environmental variables that I hadn't anticipated, not just air, temperature, and ventilation in the barn, but then also outdoors. I don't think, are you seeing any more, Jeff, with the cows that we didn't agree on? And then well, I'm thinking our studies are on the order of 48 cows in the feeding trials in a randomized complete block experimental setup. So each cow will have an identifier, and there are reps, cow reps for a certain diet regimen, but there are many cows. So then with the manure, again, there are time series. Same kind of sort of front matter or boilerplate kind of metadata, identifying the experiment and the location and the investigators. We started to think about, well, how do we define the origin of the manure versus the content that went into the manure? For example, was it urine and feces, or was there bedding involved? Was there of different types? Was there wash water from a milk parlor, etc.? So how do we parse out the different aspects of the provenance of the manure, right? Is it, people are laughing, I can't help myself. So there are decisions to be made about exactly how to group the metadata into different pieces. So again, I need to go back to the folks at Wisconsin and at Penn State who are actually dealing with the manure digestion experiments and make sure that this is okay. There are lots of units, lots of analyses, and as much as possible, we want to make them be SI units. It's not easy in every case. I have to figure out what a millisiemens is before I turn it into an SI unit. Again, some of the considerations of expressing as on a dry weight basis or a wet weight basis, which we can figure out just as for yield that we talked about this morning. So I think that's about it for the manure and the questions that we had. So I feel like at this point, with the help of the colleagues here, that I have something that I can take back to the experimenters and ask them to vet and make a good iteration towards a useful data standard, and then come back to the AGMIP people and propose some new fields. Yeah. Lignin. Tannins there, acid detergent fiber, neutral detergent fiber, and I think some of that gets very close to lignin, but it's not exactly the same thing. So I guess I can add lignin. Yeah. Yep. So. Yes. Roger found me an awesome book of nutrient requirements for dairy cattle that had international standards for feed. Very helpful, so that we're not starting from scratch on all those total mixed ration elements.
Is there a livestock model that you're using in the CAP?
There is. I think it's called CNDC. It has some
DNDC.
There's another one too that's, yes, there's that one, but there's another one that's an all farm model and it has cows in it.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's, yes.
Livsim.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm really bad at this alphabet soup.
Because I'm just thinking at the next workshop, it would be great to invite a modeler to come with you so that we can be getting the data and the models together. So
It's not Libsim.
IFSIM, yeah.
So it's different.
I see. That's not the one that AGMIP is using so far, but we're definitely interested in making an ensemble of livestock models. So
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
So let me just also add that after we worked hard on my spreadsheet that Roger Nelson presented on a system and algorithms that he has for naming variables with respect to an ontology that makes for a consistent naming convention, both in terms of variable drivers and model drivers and model parameters. And this was translated in all kinds of languages and very, very spiffy. And I can't really describe it a lot better than that, but you can ask Roger. I think the only thing I took away is that maybe I should ask him to name my variables for me. So that was the outcome of group 3.
Maybe Roger could present on that tomorrow, or one of the days. Maybe, or like a morning. It's always good at morning check-in to get some what's up with what people are doing, or something interesting. So perhaps one of the days there could be at morning check-in.
Great. Yeah, so I'm going to continue in my role as a direct conduit of information from this group to itself and to others. So this is the roadmap group attempting to develop an approach to realize the vision of an AGMIP or an agricultural data network that will support crop system models as we're working on this week. So we ended this discussion by thinking about what are the guiding principles for what we're doing, but I think we should start with that. So overall, these 9 guiding principles govern the approach to developing this network. And they're not necessarily in order. So fair attribution. So this refers to the data that are included in the system that are submitted by researchers. The principle is whatever is designed will ensure fair attribution of the data to the authors of the data in perpetuity, so that they will be, that's part of the motivation for their participation. Compatibility with international efforts. This kind of builds on yesterday's discussion where we heard a lot of reports from different efforts around the world to do these kinds of data systems. And we want to make sure that whatever is created will be interoperable with those. Community driven, so driven by the community of users and the community of contributors, so that it is designed by them and for them. Open access principle would govern everything that is done by this network. Standards and protocols that are uniform and that ensure quality controls, and I guess that's all that I can think of, remember what that one was about. Shared vision, which is also related to this community-driven principle. Transparency, whatever is done there obviously is open and visible and to all participants. Support the spectrum of production systems, related to the comment yesterday about how ensuring that the system will serve both large commercial agriculture and smallholder diversified agriculture around the world. And also I think that would include diversified organic production in North America as well, the different scales. And sustainable as a system. So with those things in mind and everything we've heard, we had then developed this roadmap. We can look at this roadmap. So this has 8 points of things that we should do to achieve the objective, which is to set up this National Agricultural Data Network. And we noted that these this roadmap would apply to a number of different frameworks that for agricultural data, not only the one that we're targeting, which is to serve agricultural modeling. So this is why this colon here in the title, Data Model Integration Initiative. But you could replace that and modify this slightly if you're interested in a genomic modeling or plant-insect interactions one or something like that. There are going to be others, certainly within the agricultural data management system we have in the U.S. So these, I think, are in more or less in the order we would do them. Conduct inventories of existing systems, data sets, both national and international, primarily to make sure that whatever is generated isn't redundant to those and is already aligned so that it will be compatible with those, and that we don't overlook very good ideas that these systems have to deal with some of the issues we'll be working on. Design infrastructure. So that will include ontologies once we are sure what we mean by that. And data dictionaries, use cases, examples, specific examples like the caps, I think. Engage with stakeholders as we do that, because we'll be serving stakeholders, and ultimately, if this is an effective system, stakeholders will be wading in and using, the resource. Develop tools and pilots, quality assurance and quality control protocols, and compatibility with the international efforts. A little redundancy there with that, but this would reflect what we've seen in under the inventory. Address legal issues. So these include the data management policies themselves, which are protecting the institutions, protecting the researchers, and ensuring fairness there. Licensing of the data and attribution. Build the capacity and culture for open data sharing and model integration. And conduct workshops to address 1 through 5. So we had a list of workshops that I don't know if the team thinks I should share those now, but we had a brainstorm of different kind of workshops that could be conducted to help address 1 through 5. But I think we consider that to be a work in progress, and that those workshops would be conducted. If we need to read those, I'll have to open up the document and look at them. I'm happy to do that. And then assess the impact, identify suitable metrics for the system, including alt metrics and then sustainably curate and maintain the data and tools, which is an issue, for us, and also, of course, for the host of the system, the USDA. So that's kind of an overview of the discussion. There are a few pages of more extensive minutes that will be part of the record for the discussion. So I guess I can try to answer questions, or other folks in the room who were part of the discussion can answer your questions as well. Right. Right. It's pretty inclusive. These are really bullet points, and you're right. They need to be, and they can be fleshed out if you through the more extensive minutes too, where I think they reflect some of that.
We also had recommendations for USDA that we developed, but they're fairly extensive and more or less paragraph form. I'm not sure they're even in this one, and I've already taken the memory stick out. But we have about 8 or 10 specific recommendations that help us think about what USDA might do to make sure that we can achieve this roadmap. And had good input, good discussions on all that as well. So we'll make all these available to people, and including the vision statement toward a shared vision that we had up there earlier. And we would like to get feedback again from you as we polish these and then submit them to USDA. In fact, I'll be staying here for the workshop the rest of the week, and by Friday morning we'll have another plenary session here, and it will be on the AT&T video conference. And by then, hopefully, we will have had a chance to make some additional revisions to those. And those of you who are going home today, please go ahead and connect up again on Friday morning.
This is just a very minor point, but if you could go down to the roadmap and the workshops, I think it's not just 1 to 5. I think that the 6th. Oh, okay. All right, that's good. All right, so I would no, that's all right. I just was getting my numbers mixed up. Okay, great. So because obviously the workshops really are important for building capacity and that culture and the incentive. So I just wanted to make sure that that's that was right, and it is. Okay,
Maybe
thanks.
an example of workshops, just to make it a little more clear. We had we thought a workshop that would connect the AGMIP group with the genomics and trait group, by saying that right, would be instructive because of the overlap between those initiatives, and would be learning some new things. Another one that had been mentioned was to bring the CAPs together to look at their approaches to their data management systems and learn from that. So those are a couple of examples. I think we had about 10 different workshop ideas in the time we had.
Another one was LTAR, to meet
Right.
with the LTARs for the same issues.
And I think that would be something welcome from the entire group. Ideas for workshops like that you think would advance this cause, because it was just a brainstorming session. So more is better for that.
We're ending the day. It's been a long day, very productive day. And so I think we will, all three want to say thank you to all of the different breakout groups, all of the dedication that went into creating this effort. Now, as I said earlier, the 4th breakout session was ended today, except we'll be working on that, and we'll be sending you these notes to get your input. Hopefully, some of the input can come back before Friday, and we can make some modifications to that. But I'm very pleased with the progress that's been made on each of the breakouts, and I'm hoping the breakouts 1, 2, and 3 didn't comment on about how far they would go by the end of the week, but these breakouts will be continuing, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to ring bells and dance in the National Agricultural Library on Friday for a successful completion of what we aim to do. So anyway, thank all of you for coming. Some of you are going to be leaving today. Many of you will be here tomorrow to continue. So I think Cynthia and Simon won't be with us. So let me give them a floor.
So I'll just say, yes, I'm leaving this evening, but it's just been great to be here for these 2 days. I think we really are fulfilling the objectives of the workshop as planned, and I look forward very much to hearing what you all accomplish in the next 3 days, 2.5 days, and really look forward to continuing to work with you as we head out on this roadmap of the data model initiative, integration initiative. Thanks a lot. It's been great to be here.
Well, I don't have much to add, but just say thank you very much for your participation, your wisdoms, your thinking, your idea. Indeed, what we imagine here in the library, we say library is the place for imagination. Library is the place to deliver new product, new service, right? So I think your imagination, the discussion we have here, the idea we have here, today or yesterday or this week will become a very, very important product and services in the future. Thank you all very much. Thank you.